And what's up, everyone? Welcome to twitch.tv/OPNoobsOnline. This is Fred, and I'm still getting the damn feedback that I got last time, so I'm gonna stop right now. Let's stop right now, guys. Let's turn off the stream. Let's start it over again. Okay, test. Yes, everything is okay. It's working. Yeah, it's working. I'm not getting the feedback again, except okay. So technically, we had a small difficulty. It actually was not a technical difficulty. It's more connected to the fact that I'm a total idiot because the audio volume was on my browser, and somehow I thought I was having a technical difficulty when I was not.
We used to call those an 18-inch error. The error is 18 inches in front of the screen. See?
Right.
Yeah.
The error is right here, Chris.
The error is right there.
The major error, the cancer of OP Noobs, is its founder himself. The error is right here. I'm accompanied, so I'm glad that the technical difficulties today have been reduced to the first 30 seconds of the show, because I believe everything is happening well. Do double check, Joel, that you've got everything laid out the way it's supposed to be. So I get to break the ice, even though it's tough to find ice in a space like this. Especially had you been here pre-show, you would know there's no ice here.
Nope,
no damn ice. I want to welcome Sarah, who's been kind of new to the show and also kind of new to the community as a writer. Sarah is one of, and Sarah, we've seen you before. Let me put it this way. In kind of 7 years in the making of OP Noobs, we've seen this type of people who come in and suddenly own the website, because that's what Sarah is doing. She's owning the website. She's writing faster than anyone else. She's grabbing everything. She's producing quality content. She's committed. She's in love with the whole affair, the way I'm in love with the whole affair, and I've been so for a long time. And now on top of it, we're getting to know Sarah on a whole different level than the damn internet, which is becoming more and more obnoxious every day because of this damn corona thing. We're getting to know Sarah, and it's the power of Twitch, it's the power of live streaming. We're getting to know Sarah on a personal level, which is through webcams, through microphones, through a real experience that is the Noobcast. My favorite piece of OP Noobs as a whole, across the board, even though it's super unsuccessful. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So Sarah, thanks for teaming up like this. We're excited to have you on the show. We tried you last week. We had a few technical hiccups. How you doing?
I'm doing a lot better. I got a mic and it's working. It's on my Mac, which is weird because I couldn't get the headphones to work on my PC.
Can you boot her, Joel?
I got a new headset and it's on the way to me.
She's on the Mac. Can you boot her, Joel?
Well, yes.
I thought we had a pretty clear no Mac rule here on the show. I'm sorry, Sarah, but
do you get that feeling that when you walk into an Apple store, you're like not as good as everyone else?
I don't know what the fuck you're doing walking into Apple stores. I don't get that feeling because I don't go into Apple stores. Because I have respect for my money.
Every time I walk into that Apple store,
it was a present from a guy.
Is he come again, Sarah?
That's fair. I've never gotten
from a guy I was dating.
Hey, if I got a laptop from somebody I was dating, I'd use it too for as long as I could.
I like that it's past tense. She's like, yeah, the guy's gone. The Mac is still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I kicked that dude to the curb, but I kept his crap.
Like, I'm going to keep this. This is mine now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I kept all of it. Everything.
One day I'm just going to have a whole Twitch show about Apple because I have so many things to say about it. And it's directly connected to PC gaming. I mean, we actually get quite a few recruiters say, hey, is it okay if I play these games on my Mac? I mean, as long as it works, I guess so, right? Like, Chris, is a port on a PC the same as a port on a Mac?
What I mean, we build everything in PC, but we port to Mac. The Mac ports aren't that hard if your engine supports it. Most stuff's built in Unity anymore, and Unity ports directly to Mac pretty quickly and easily.
So you're not, yeah.
It's not a big thing. The problem is more testing. Like as a small indie studio, I have to have some people in my studio that have Macs, and it's irritating as shit because I'm like, you're a tester and you have like a $2,000 machine because I had to, buy $600 wheels for it or whatever the hell you got to buy for Macs anymore. But, and I'm infuriated every time I have to buy a testing machine on a Mac. But the thing is, if you're building iOS games, you also have to have a Mac to build those as well. So yeah, I buy Macs as part of my studio, and I hate it every time I do it. I get irritated and angry every time I have to do it.
Because fuck him, man. Like the problem with Mac is they come up, they fuck you before you fuck him. In the sense that they come up with those updates, whether it's for your phone, your computer, it doesn't matter, right? They come up with these, hey,
God, I hate the update.
Here's an awesome update because we're on top of the technological end, right? And you're like, oh, sweet, like a new update for my phone. It's going to look all shiny and new. And so like an idiot, you download it because who the hell wants to stay with a little red dot with a 1 on top of their settings thing that says, hey, you're not following the trends. So you end up updating, right? And you update and suddenly your iPhone is slow. Your iPhone, your $1,000 machine that you bought 2 years ago, Chris, is slow.
There's a law in the States that you cannot be both a doctor and a pharmacist, right? If you're a doctor, you can't write prescriptions for yourself, right? Because there's too much incentive for the doctor to just like write a bunch of pharmaceutical script for a bunch of shit to make them money, right? So you separate them. And I feel like this is Apple's problem, is like, because they're the software and the hardware, they're like, yeah, we're going to build the software with the purpose of selling you hardware. Whereas like Windows, like Microsoft doesn't make any money if I go out and buy a new Intel machine, right? It doesn't hurt. They don't get anything out of that. Right?
No, and most of the time when you buy a part for your computer, you don't give money to Microsoft.
Exactly. And that's the way it should be. The software should be, there ought to be like doctors and pharmacists. They ought to be, separated. One, you don't benefit from putting, I get Windows updates all the time, but if the Windows update slowed down my Aftershock computer, I would be pissed.
And it's the exact same problem with Google, right? Not to kind of open the debate even bigger when we're supposed to talk about the 7 games we picked this week, which we will.
We should get to that. That's probably a thing.
At some point.
Probably a thing, but it's the same thing with Google. Do you want your search engine to also be that authority, that massive authority online to tell you which search result is important and which is less important?
You could get into a whole show about the weirdness of the people who are advertising to me are the same people who are providing my email and the same people who are providing search results when I need information. That bubble of thing has probably caused more pain and suffering in the modern world, and
it's
more anti-vaxxers and whatever the fuck you want to talk about. That thing is it's a crime before nature. But aren't we supposed to be talking about games?
I'm gonna do it. But I mean, you got a French host, man. Like we like to get cozy before we start talking about the meaty stuff. And I'm still not done because I still want to introduce Joel.
Yeah, like 10 minutes. But...
Yeah, I'm getting to it. I still want to introduce Joel Endershot. Joel, if you guys don't know him, he's been a superstar of OPN Noobs for 3, 4, 5 years maybe, a long time. Him and I slept together at a convention but had no sex. I just want to precise.
So you're married then?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool.
We slept in the hotel room together. That's what I meant. And I got to know Joel personally. Great guy. Love him to death. Thanks, Joel, for everything you do for OPN Noobs. And I also want to thank the people in the chat. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. You're probably coming from either some email that we sent out or some Discord messaging that I did right before the show. Thanks for tuning in. If you don't know this, we've got a big raffle and it happens every single week. It's opnoobs.com/raffle. opnoobs.com/raffle. You plug in your screen name, you plug in your email address. That's how we invite you for the next week. We won't spam you or send it to some corporate asshole that's gonna use your email to sell you toothpaste or something. Just plug it in and you'll compete for the the rolling wheel that we have at the end of the show that gets you a bunch of tons of free games, and some of these games are really cool tonight. I haven't checked out the list myself personally, but I think there's some 2 or 3 AAA, a bunch of indie games. And considering there's 10 of us on the chat, you've got a pretty damn good chance of getting it, bro.
Yeah.
What I gotta bitch just a little bit though. How come my games are never given away on your giveaways?
Because you don't give them away. If you send me an email that says, "Hey Fred, here's a bunch of games I want to give you."
All right, done. I just realized this week why are we not giving away a copy of my games every week? Why are we not doing that thing?
In fact, Boomzap Entertainment. And before we get to it, we'll cover it next week anyways, and we're also gonna do a tournament on it just in a couple weeks. Chris, why don't you tell us about what's happening to Boomzap Entertainment next week?
Oh yeah. So we're launching. We have a new game, Last Regiment, that has been in early access for a few months. We're launching it next week on May 19th. It is a turn-based simultaneous strategy game for people who are in the turn-based games and whatever. It's really cool. People have loved it in early access. We're launching next week, so yeah, that's a big thing. And I don't know why we're not giving away free copies of this every week here on OP News. I don't know why we're not doing that thing.
Yeah, we'll start next week. I want to play that game, Chris.
All right, done. I'll get you a copy.
That's totally awesome. Love it. Thank you.
It's got elves with chainsaws. It's got goblins riding on flying squirrels. We have a unit in the game called Monkeys Riding Monkeys. That's an actual unit name.
I love it.
So,
oh my god.
What more do you want? I have monkeys riding monkeys. I have everything you need.
That's the dream game. Monkeys on monkeys. That's all I've ever wanted.
I was like, how do you put more monkeys in the game? Well, I have a monkey unit. Yeah, but can we get more monkeys? You could put monkeys on the monkeys. Done. Sold. Monkeys
honestly,
on the monkeys.
You can legit always get more monkeys.
Dude, every game in the world. You tell me a game that wouldn't be better with more monkeys. No such animal. Every game is improved by adding more monkeys. That's a fact.
Hi, Sarah. Do you have your eyes on the first games? Because we've got the trailer that just started, and it's a good one. It's a funky one. If you can give us some basics on the description.
It's sure. It's Adam RPG. True Treasure Grad. I'm so bad with that word. I'm sorry.
Sounds Russian.
Early access. Yeah. It's from Adam's team, and they are the developer and publisher. It's a turn-based post-apocalyptic role-playing game which continues the story of Adam RPG as a standalone sequel / expansion, and follows the traditions set by classic RPGs such as the early Fallout and Wasteland titles.
So I had to go look up what CRPGs was, because that's what it says on there. Like, it says it a few times in their things. That's CRPG is just computer RPG as opposed to a tabletop role-playing game. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I've never heard that in my life.
I never have either.
RPG. That's new. Huh.
Yeah. So,
the millennials. They've done it to us. Yeah. This is a millennial thing.
Yeah. But I took a look at this game. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh no, I was just complaining about millennials. Definitely.
Oh yeah, that's fair. They're the biggest problem we have. Anyway, them, Apple, and Google. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. But no, this game looks really solid. I hadn't actually seen the Adam RPG yet. It does, like, even the initial trailer has a very Fallout feel. So this is basically Russian third-person Fallout, right? But I mean, it even shows the power armor. That's what it looks like.
Like, you mean like the original Fallout, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, it looks better than the early Fallout games. I mean, the early Fallout games were,
good at their time.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. God, I have a problem with your statement, Joel, but I keep going.
Which statement?
Just the Fallout comparison, but that might be because I only latched on to Fallout when the number 4 came out.
Well, so I mean, it's obviously trying to hearken to that. I mean, even the icon for Trudegrad itself, I'm assuming that's how you say it. I mean, it shows a a person in power armor that looks exactly like T-56 power armor. Like,
I can see it through the cutscenes. I'll give you that. But once you get into gameplay,
it looks totally different. I agree, but it just like it. I think they're trying to grab you in with that. Like that's one of their marketing tools. But it looks really solid. Like it's something that, you know, if they've got the story in it, and I guess Adam RPG like seemed to be, you know, pretty well be received pretty well.
Yeah, but we get into those conversations quite a bit on these shows, but this is one worth having, is the fact that doesn't get to you, Joel, when you see an indie studio. It's definitely indie, getting a ton of traction, by the way, on YouTube. This is not one, because on this show we have kind of a broad range of games. Some of them we feel like deserve the attention but are getting no traction, and then some of them indie games still, like we're talking about, like the lower tier, right? Like some of them are getting a ton of traction, deserve some attention, and are getting it at the same time. Here's my problem with this game. Don't you have a problem when an indie studio comes up with all these great videos, and then when you actually zoom into the gameplay, it feels like a very small budget production?
I don't know. It's I kind of wonder, like, what do you want them to do, right? I mean, they're a small indie studio. They make a budget Russian Fallout game.
I want the trailer to match. I guess what I'm saying. I get what you're saying.
Wait, hear me out, Fred.
Go ahead.
And looking at the reviews, looking at what people say, they've enjoyed it. They like it, right? People who've played this game seem to like this game. They give what look like honest reviews that they like the game. And then the studio says, how do we get people to come play our game? How do we get people to play our small indie budget Fallout game? Well, let's make great trailers, right? Because if we make trailers that look exactly like the in-game gameplay, people aren't going to come. So it's sort of like, what do you want the developers to do? Like, I mean,
I don't want the trailer. I want the. I guess. Yeah, I get you. I guess my criticism here is your trailers, your cutscenes, your whatever you want to call it. It has to capture the feel of what we as gamers are actually doing.
That I would agree with. I will say, you know, I give them a little bit of leeway with like a trailer video or a teaser video that's on YouTube. Okay, maybe this isn't the video that shows a gameplay, but if I go to the Steam page and I look through the Steam page, and I've gotten in the habit on this show of actually ignoring everything but the Steam page. And so I go directly to Steam page. I go through what now is marketing in video games, which is your Steam page. And I feel like the screenshots are reasonably indicative of what I'm going to get. I feel like I look through the screenshots and I'm kind of like, all right, I kind of get what this is. I think the video may be, you know, a little bit more polished than what I'm going to get in the real game. But again, the other thing is this is an early access game. And I've been through the process of early access a couple times. And that's one of the big struggles that a developer has, is how early do I put my game in early access? If I put it in too early, then okay, the game's not going to look as polished as it's supposed to look. And I'm going to get people who are like, I don't know, the trailer looked really polished, but the game didn't look polished yet. Well, of course it's not polished yet. It's in early access. Or if I do it too late in early access, I'll get a bunch of great notes, but I'll be like, dude, I'm going to ship this game in like 4 weeks. I can't change all that shit now.
Yeah.
So it's really I think one of the biggest struggles of being a developer right now is, how do I both get the audience involved in my game, get the audience to come look at my game when the game is early enough that it's still got a lot of warts in it? Yeah. And it's actually one of the things I was really,
great sense.
I was really happy when I read through the comments, because this has got 97 reviews, which is not bad for an early access game.
And the fact that it's been online for what? Because this came out yesterday. It came out yesterday, and it got like a couple hundred views on our YouTube page instantly.
So I don't know what they're. I wish I knew what they were doing to do that, because I wish I could manage that kind of success in early access launch. But the reviews that I read seem to be very understanding of it being early access, and I really hope that the audience of PC games gets educated to this struggle that developers have, because otherwise we're going to take this good thing away from you. Right? If we keep putting games in early access and you keep trashing them because they're early access games and they're not done yet, our response is going to be obvious. We're not going to give you early access as early as we've been giving it to you. because we don't want to get trashed, and you're going to have to wait until the game is done. And I think everybody loses in that, because the developers get a lot from early access. We get a lot of great notes and a lot of great feedback. So that's great for us, but it's also great for the players because they actually get better games that have been through testing and have gotten feedback. I know my game has gotten great feedback through early access, and it's a way better game now than it was before we put it in early access. But it can only do that if people are willing to treat early access as early access. If we treat early access as a launch, then the developer is going to have to treat early access as a launch, and you're not going to get all this good stuff. That's my little rant for today. And I think this is a good example of that.
No, but I think that's a great rant. Yeah, and I'm going to move on. Sarah, Joel, if you want to talk on this show, you have to impose yourself.
You're good.
You have to talk over me, and that's not easy.
And Fred. That's not easy either. So, yeah, make sure you impose yourself.
I'll talk over someone. I have no problem putting my opinion in.
Oh, yep. Welcome to the Noobcast.
Because it looks like Fallout, and I really like Fallout. So I think that it's something that I would personally play, just because it really reminds me of Fallout, and it's kind of that nostalgic feeling of playing the game. It makes me happy. I would love to play it.
Then they definitely sold you on it the way Joel kind of said they would. So that's actually a great transition away from the next game. Sarah, if you can get your eyes on it on the website, and by the way, you can check out all the games on opnnoobs.com. opnnoobs.com, that's the main website. You'll find out what we're playing this week as soon as you go underneath the YouTube video of the last week's podcast, which we'll be replacing with tonight's podcast starting tomorrow. And we're now going to look at number 2, which is Hunt Down. And Hunt Down is one of those indie games. I'm just going to preface it. You seem ready to me, Sarah. You seem very ready, which is exciting to me. But Hunt Down is one of those games. As soon as you're done, let's put it this way. As soon as you're done, Chris, why don't you take over? Go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead.
Okay. Hunt Down was developed by Easy Trigger Games, published by Coffee Stain Publishing. In the mayhem-filled streets of the future where criminal gangs rule and cops fear to tread, only the bounty hunters can free the city from the corrupt fists of felony. Lay waste to the criminal underworld and make a killing in this hard-boiled action comedy arcade shooter.
Yeah, Fred, you know I'm not going to like this, right? You pitched to me because you know I'm going to bitch about it, but you know.
Well, I don't know anymore because that's the thing. Week? Like after last week, I don't know anymore because, and that was this.
I don't know. That's the thing. I know that you think I'm gonna not like this, and there is on the surface a lot for me not to like here. And again, this is my own personal perspective. And this is something, again, that I wish critiques would have more of, right? I lived through this era. I'm old enough to remember games that looked like this.
Me too.
Because they had to look like this. Because we didn't have any other options. You only had 16 bits, and that's just how it was, right? And back then, games that would, if I had played this game in 1987, I would have thought it looked great. I would have been amazed by it. And they're trying to get that retro feel and to sort of, that's the aesthetic that they want. Honestly,
actually, can I stop you right here, Chris?
Yep.
You just made me realize something. Is there a connection to be made here with the whole remake kind of era that we're in?
I don't know. I think I think
you see what I mean, right?
No, I get it. I think a lot of what's happening in the game industry right now is when you start a product, the immediate question that you have to have before you put one line of code together is, how am I going to market this game? That's the argument that every developer is going through right now. And so let's say you were going to make Hunt Down, and let's say you were going to make a cool, fun game where you run around. It's a side scroller. You're going to have weapons. You're going to shoot. And the argument in the creative team is going to be, how do we sell this? What's its catch? What's its hook? When I send a bunch of letters to a bunch of press people, what are we going to say is cool about it? right? And you can't just say, you know, it's going to be a side scroller and there's going to be guns and you're going to shoot stuff, because there's like 5,000 of those. And so one way that you could go is you could say, it's totally retro. It's 1980s retro. And we have a character called Anaconda, which, by the way, that's pretty cool. Anaconda.
It is good. It is good.
All right. That was good. I saw that. I was like, all right, that was cool. Right.
Yeah.
And so this is their marketing gimmick, right? This is the way that they're going to pitch their game is it's super retro 80s. Maybe that's what people want. And I get it. It's not for me, but what I was going to say before you interrupt is I actually think they've done a reasonably good job of this. If that's what they were trying to do, it's a pretty good call. They did a pretty good job of it. I don't know, Joel, what do you think?
Okay, I'm not, as a general rule.
Really good. It definitely looks really good. Like,
yeah. As a general rule, I'm not into side scrollers, like in platformers. But I love the look of this game. I love the look and the feel of it. I think that it's not just there's some that are retro for the sake of being retro, and I think this is retro from what it looks like, and you know, fighting in a like wrestling arena, you know, things like that. Like, I think that it's not just retro, but it's taking such a not serious view of itself, right? And it's like, because it's a kind of action comedy arcade shooter, and I think that the amount of throwbacks that it has, like, to the 80s. I was also, you know, old enough to play these games, and these are like, when, I don't know if you guys remember playing like RoboCop whenever it came out, like on NES back in the day, and like, this is exactly what I think I was wanting from those games, but we couldn't get there then, right? Yeah. And so, like, I think this is such a throwback that I want to play it.
Sarah?
Yeah, I second that, Sarah.
Like, do you remember that game when it came out and they popped up from the sewer, side scroll? It's the exact same thing. And there's another game coming out that I've been begging for the key for, that I want to play, and I have the demo, and Fred knows what it is because I keep bugging him about it, but I'm really hopeful that I'll get to review that side-scrolling game.
What is it?
Jay and Silent Bob Mall Brawl.
All right.
Nice.
That happens every now and then, where I got this writer that comes on Discord and starts like direct messaging me. It's like, Fred, you need to get me this. You need to get me this, right? And I look it up, and I'm like, God, I've been in the gaming industry for 7 years straight. Like, by the gaming industry, I mean like 30 hours a week in the gaming industry for 7 years, just as from press standpoint, right? Like, I've been exposed to thousands and thousands and thousands of games by now. And like, there's this one writer that comes to me on Discord and says, Fred, this needs to happen now. And I'm like, Sarah, where is this coming from? Because I've never heard of it. Have you guys heard of this before? Is this like when Sarah tells you, I want to review this game makes me think about it?
I know the license. I know.
I don't know it. I don't know
anything about the game. I didn't know there was such a thing.
I don't know the license. I don't even know the license. So Sarah, like, what's the obsession from? Because like, you're reviewing like
Jay and Silent Bob, the Jersey series.
Yeah. But it might be one of those.
Who didn't watch Chasing Amy or Clerks or Mallrats or all of those films? And it's that classic Jay and Silent Bob humor where, you know, they smoke a doobie to get past the cops. And it's like, I played the demo, and it's pretty fun. And I feel like I could write a review just off the demo, but if I could get the full game, then I get the full experience.
Get the woman a game for crying out loud,
I'm working on it to get back.
I want to say one other thing about this game. I want to.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I want to say something about Huntdown. Actually, the more I look at it, the more I realize the reason why the pixel art doesn't bother me, the reason why the retroness doesn't bother me, is because they went all in. Right? Yeah. They didn't just do pixel art. They did a full, this is the 1980s. Look at our 1980s colors, look at our 1980s graphics, look at our character names, look at our theme. Like, in this case, I feel like in the same way somebody might have said, we're going to make a fantasy game, and we're going to make a post-apocalyptic Fallout style game. They said we're going to make a 1980s game, and I think they've nailed that aesthetic very well. And I will note that it is pixel art, but
similar
it's really
to last
good
week's,
pixel art.
right? Like similar to last week's, basically.
Yeah.
Like, and I forget the name of the game. It doesn't even matter. Like it just seems to be that finally things are shifting this year, where pixel art is getting the attention of studios that are half capable of taking on pixel art in 2020. It kind of feels that way to me, at least. Because I
like this. I like the look of this. I hope they do well with this. I say only nice things about it.
Because up till now,
By the way, am I the only one that noticed that the release date for this is the 12th of May, 2021?
Yeah, but that's on It's on Metacritic. It's coming out. I think maybe in early access. I think this might. And so actually that bears the question. And I was thinking about it when we looked at the first game, which is. It's a huge topic, and I almost want to have a whole show dedicated completely to it. Is there a genre that fits early access?
I don't know.
I think there is. And the more experienced I become in PC gaming, the more I think there is. I think early access is not for the gaming industry. It's for a specific genre. I think
I want to have that conversation. I want to be part of that discussion. Yeah, I've got so much to talk about for early access.
All right, moving on. Next game. Sarah, it's all yours.
Okay, next game is Jet Lancer. Vladimir.
Actually, I think.
Pushkin and Nikolai.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sarah, but I think we're skipping this one unless it's. Let me double check on that. I'm sorry about that. I think
we can't stop now.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Throw it. Yeah,
we whipped it out. We
go ahead.
Finish.
Okay. Armor, and it's published by Armor Games Studio. Jet Lancer is a high-velocity aerial combat shooter where you duel enemy aviators, hunt giant robots, and defy death at supersonic speeds as you evolve from an unknown rookie aviator into a once-in-a-generation ace pilot.
Yeah, so take my personal apologies for that. It's actually it's actually on the list, right? Like it's not an also checkout, because if you look on the stream at the bottom right side of the layout, you've got a bunch of videos that are showing up. But
I want to know, Fred, why did you put this on the list? What was your
okay? So here's the logic. We've got 10 games to pick from out of 100 games. You can trust the fact that the other 90 games are absolute crap, because if they were not, they would making the list. This is the level of just kind of corruption, that's not corruption but abuse that there is on Steam right now. It's 9 games out of 10 are a joke, and I really stand by that. It's because I really stand by that. If you start to look at Metacritic and all the games that come out every week, 90% out of them they're not games. They're not games I don't care anyone would ever play. And that's probably the problem of Unity coming together with Steam and just publishing everything. But so I look at this game, right? And it's the same kind of, to answer your question, Chris, it's the same kind of logic that applied to the last game. I fall on those trailers like 100 times a week, and I have about a 5-second window in my brain that goes like next or keep still. I keep still, I scroll down, is there a press kit, is there a website, is there a studio that actually made the effort to put together a marketing approach to their game? Because that, to me at least, that's an indicator of like we're serious about making games. I see that the game looks like an actual game, and I start going on to YouTube. Because hear me out, I'm not done.
Exactly.
Because you asked me about my process.
Actual game.
You asked me about my. I mean, to be fair, you asked me about my process, right?
I just want you to promise me that later on, when I release a game, you will use the same quote so that I can put it in all my marketing materials right at the top. It's an actual game.
It's but that's. I mean, that's all it takes for me. I think like if it's an actual game and it's made by actual people who actually gave a shit, it deserves our attention in some shape or form online. That's the whole logic of OPN Noobs, and that's the whole logic of the Noobcast. Moving on with this, you start to move on, you know, like watching this shit, you're going through the same experiences I've already been through, right? It's like, oh, okay, there's footage, at least there's footage, and I'm looking through it, and there's cutscenes, and you're starting to feel like, okay, maybe this is somewhat worth me shitting all over it. And that's already an improvement from you not even taking the time to shit all over it, right? And you go on their YouTube page, they've got traction. They've got like 2,000 subscribers or something. So this is not just a random game. And I guess that was a long introduction that was kind of also at the same time necessary, because now go ahead, and I'm not going to start with you, Chris, because...
you.
Yeah. I'm going to start with Joel. Go ahead, Joel.
So basically everything that I said, the reason why I like the last one is the kind of the opposite reaction I have to Jet Lancer. So I mean, there's some interesting things it's trying to do with kind of, it's not just a straight like side scroller shooter. Like they have a little bit more physics involved and stuff like that, but it's trying to capture that, but I don't think it does that kind of old kind of side scroller flying genre, like shooters on genre very well. I don't know. There's some cool stuff that it's doing, but not enough to actually like catch me and bring me in. Like the last one, I felt like didn't take itself too seriously. Like it knew what it was and was going for that. This one, like, you know, it's like, oh, be a badass, like get to be the best pilot around or whatever. And so again, it's like, it does take itself very seriously.
You're
like,
totally never allowed to write marketing copy, Joel. That was the worst marketing copy ever. Be a badass. No, you don't get to write marketing copy ever.
It's under features.
I think there's a space for bullet hell still. I think there's a space for bullet hell. Sarah?
I feel like it's really close to the old arcade game Galactica, where it looks like you're just destroying things that are coming at you. And I get that that's fun, and that's probably my favorite arcade game other than the Simpsons arcade game, but it's just a jet fighting game. It's like if you want to be the best, then play it, but if not, it looks kind of dull to me.
Wow, I think you guys are being like nasty.
I haven't had an opinion yet. I merely asked why you included it because I was curious. I actually like the look of it.
It's multifaceted.
I will say I won't give it my rousing review of, yeah, this really wanted to be pixel art because of blah, 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 blah. No, I would have liked to have seen better graphics, but in terms of gameplay, this looks fun. It looks really hard to me. Like when I watch the trailer, I'm like, I wouldn't even play it just because I'm like, there's no way I could react to things as quickly as the people in this trailer are reacting to things. I'm pretty sure I would get absolutely hosed if I tried to play this. But I know that there are people who love this. I know there are people who really love these high fast. There's an audience for this, and for that audience, I think this audience is probably going to like it, to be honest.
And to be frank, like when I see, because here's the thing about bullet hell, like, and you get what I mean by bullet hell, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like arcade game, bullet hell, like fast paced, lots of bullets, lots of monsters, 2D. It hasn't had a success story in a long time. Let me put it this way, right? Like
that's true.
It hasn't had a success story in a long time, and they're still being made. They're still out there. There's still a niche audience for it, and you haven't had a success story for a long time. I don't know why that is, and yet, like, part of me want to say it's not dead. It's not dead, and maybe that's like my emotional connection to it as a child playing those arcade games when I was like 10 years old, right? But I don't even.
I would argue there's a lot of genres of games out there that we have let fall by the wayside. Yeah. That could be picked up and something new and interesting could be done with them. And I do agree that bullet hell is one of them.
And it starts with bullet hells. It goes all the way up to MMO. I completely agree with what you just said.
The thing though that I don't like is I don't like the visual look of the game.
Me too.
I think one of the most amazing things, what's really fun about the bullet hell games is that they have amazing graphics. They have really you know, that's what's really great to see. All the explosions and the gun effects look great and such. And I gotta say, this is not as great as I would hope something like that would be. They went the sort of retro pixel route, and I don't like it. But I mean, that's
no, we're in agreement. I don't think that's an opinion.
That's a subjective
no, I don't think so.
I don't know that it's fair for me to really criticize a game.
I think it is. I think that's pretty.
Like it, but
I think that's pretty objective, Chris.
I think
graphically could have been better.
What I would say is I would like to see more of this, in the sense that I would like to see more games where I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that dynamic in a while. I haven't seen anyone make one of those in a while, as opposed to, hey, look, it's this week's side scroller beat 'em up, right? Because we've had one every week since time began, right? Oh, look, here's the next post-apocalyptic RPG. Okay, all right, there's one of those every week. I would love to see people go back into the vault of old cool game designs and say, look, nobody's done one of these in a while, right? Nobody's made in a really long time. Nobody's made a really great space shooter in a really long time. Nobody's made a really great big walking giant robots that shoot things game in a while. They made Mech Warrior and everybody loved it, right? Because there hadn't been one in forever. And I think there's a good solid 20 designs out there of old games that we played and we enjoyed when we were younger, that nobody's gone back and said, with the technology and what we know about games now, what could we go back and do now? I wish I saw more of this every week. That's what I want to say. I'll okay, well, let's see if there's something I can crap on later. What else we got?
Oh, the next one you'll crap on. The next one.
Virtuaverse.
It's developed by Theta Division, published by Blood Music. Virtuaverse is a cyberpunk point-and-click adventure set in the future not so far away that tells tales of technomancers, AVR graffiti artists, hacker groups, tribes of crypto shamans, the digital archaeology, epic cyber wars, and virtual reality debauchery.
Actually, let me retract that statement, Chris. I think you're gonna poop all over this game. I want to poop all over this game.
See, I said
but here's the thing, like this. So there's talent, because if you look at, and that's one of those things that's always upsetting, at least to me, it's when I see talent. There's definitely talent in that production house. A lot of great art, a lot of great graphic art, great press kit, great stuff. Traction online, they're not insignificant. They're getting things done. And yet when you jump into the game, and maybe that's me, I don't know, point and clicks, right? Like point and clicks. I'll stop here. Point and clicks. Sarah, point and clicks. Just, where do you stand on point and clicks? Not your thing?
I don't really, no, point and clicks are definitely not my thing. I'm more of a RPG or a scroll or something like the game Chris developed. The turn-based strategy games are my bread and butter. Like, I could play those all day. But this just looks like it's trying to be simple, but it has a difficult storyline. It's just a muddled storyline.
Like, the average gamer in me thinks like, this is not worth my time. But I also know there's such a big niche that has to be respected, kind of has to be acknowledged, at least in the realm of point and clicks, that have made point and clicks that look just like that, very successful in the last, I'm not even talking about the last 10 years, right? I'm talking about the last 2-3 years. Some people are going to look at this game and think, all right, let me check this out immediately. In this context, do you guys feel like this game has potential? And I'll pass the microphone along to Joel.
So the main thing that has a lot of potential is the music. So it's interesting. So if you look at the developer and the publisher, first of all, it's their first title. for both. The publisher is called Blood Music, and if you listen to the music on the trailer, it is freaking legit. Like that's one of the things that when you listen to it, I was like, I'm just gonna sit and watch this trailer just to listen to the music, right? And so, which makes it seem to me that rather than being a game, it's as much of an art project as a game. And it's not necessarily my style, but man, that music rips. I will say that.
I have to agree. Actually, the music in this is amazing.
It's great music.
I will say, I don't like this, but that is a subjective judgment, right? This game was not made for me, right? And I want to be very clear that just because it's not made for me doesn't make it a bad game, right? The music in this is solid. The sort of visual look and feel that they're going for, I hate pixel art, but they did a pretty good job with it. It's pretty good pixel art, right? This whole William Gibson cyberpunk world that they've put together, yeah, sure, it's Shadowrun, but I don't mind, right? I mean, there's not enough Shadowrun stuff out there, I guess, for the people who want the Shadowrun stuff.
That is true.
I think there is a small focused audience of people who are just going to gush all over this. And you know what? Good. Have at it. Have a good time with it. Go play this. Enjoy your world. I'm not going to be a part of it because it's not what I'm into.
But it does look fairly well put together, right?
That's the thing. Sometimes you look at something. Look, I hate country music. I can't stand country music. But that doesn't mean that all country music artists are shit, right? It just means I don't like country music, right? And this is a perfect example of me looking at a whole subculture of gamers and things that gamers want, and I can very clearly see these people know who their audience are.
And frankly,
they've made something for that audience. That audience isn't me, but what they've made is really good. And by all means, go do more of that. And this is what I was talking about, Fred. There needs to be more of this. There needs to be more people who say, look, I don't have to be the next Assassin's Creed and a game that everyone and their dog plays. I'm going to pick my 500,000 users in the world and make something for those 500,000 users. And I hope those 500,000 users come. If I can even get 10% of those 500,000 users, I can afford to make my dream game.
And
that's what I would love to see those 90 Steam games a week be.
What you just said, though, is exactly why I'm so, it's exactly why I've never cared too much to be part of a community that's about console gaming. It's because I'm not, it's not like I'm a hardcore PC gamer that's completely.
I will say Switch has changed this, right? I would have agreed with you about this not being console game until Switch. What I've noticed that's happened with Switch is there's a lot of this sort of niche indie content that's being made for Switch. And there are console gamers that are being introduced to the idea that you can play different, interesting new stuff. I've watched it happen. I'm not a big Switch gamer, but my son is a huge Switch gamer.
Yeah.
And I've been blown away coming and looking over his shoulder and being like, what are you playing there? That looks like a PC game.
And and it's two things I want to just say quickly about that. One is that Nintendo was really smart about that, and it was unexpected. Like, I never thought Nintendo...
I was surprised.
Yeah, I never thought Nintendo would take the indie mantle the way it has. And two, from a technical standpoint, it's just smart development from Nintendo, because I think they, and don't quote me on that because I'm definitely not an expert, but it probably means that porting from PC to Switch is not as bad as porting from PC to PlayStation and Xbox, which
it's about the same.
Interesting.
The question is whether or not the audience is there, and whether or not you can directly address that audience.
Interesting.
And on Switch, you can address that audience a lot quicker and easier, because there is a built-in audience of people who are playing indie type games where they're not really there on PlayStation or Xbox, not in the volume that there are on Switch.
Here's another show I like to put up, is why that is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just the question of why that is.
Yeah, my Switch, like, I have more indie games than I have of regular games. And it's because you go to the Nintendo store and they're having a 90% sale on this indie game. And you can grab it for 10 cents and 5 cents or 3 cents or $1.99. And now you have this indie game that is exactly what you want to play. And you are exposed to those titles, and that helps that company develop a better game for the next step. So the Switch really revolutionized gaming, in my opinion.
Well, for the record, the 3 cents doesn't do much for us developers. But that being said, having a bunch of people out there playing your game is better than not having a bunch of people out there playing your game. And I've noticed that, my son is a big Switch gamer for financial reasons, right? I don't give him a huge budget for playing video games. He has to kind of pay for that himself out of a very small budget. And so a lot of times when I see him play Switch games, I'm like, why are you playing that? And he's like, because it's free, right? So this is something console games haven't really had, this idea that there's going to be a bunch of very free or very cheap content available. So if you want to look at why Switch is doing so well, that's a big part of it. You're a 14-year-old kid and you've got a gaming budget of X dollars a month. Well, you can get a lot of cheap games over on Switch for that. But I feel like we've gone on a tangent. My point on Virtuaverse is I would love to see more content that I think understands its user as well as this understands its user. They're very obviously, they've figured out a group of people and they've made a product for that group of people. I think there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to fanboy all over this, and that's good. I wish there were more small niche products with an audience base of 100 to 250,000 people that are dedicated to supporting that studio and supporting their products. If we could live in a world where most content was that, instead of, oh, look, there's another Grand Theft Auto and the whole world's going to go play Grand Theft Auto for a month, that would be such a nice place for development. I would love to live in that world. And so, yeah, I like this game. Come on, find me something I can shit on, Fred. Feeling too positive.
Take a crack at you have been. Take a crack at the next one. Honestly, you should not shit on this. Actually,
no, I can't. Well, read the thing, Sarah.
So I skipped number 5 because I want to keep everybody out before 10 p.m. and we've kind of lingered around some themes tonight. All worth it. But
so
Sarah, why don't
Super Mega Baseball?
Yeah, that's
3,
the one.
Right?
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. It's by Tallhead Software Inc., developed and published. Run up the score in a relaxed slugfest or push the limits of your reflexes in this refined baseball simulator. The third entry in the series features an all-new franchise mode, major graphical enhancements, and on-field additions, including pickoffs and situational player traits.
Joel, this one's all yours.
Oh, this one's for me. I don't hardly have much to say about it. As far as like sports games go, generally, I don't play a ton of them. I have family members who are super specifically into baseball games, and I like the art style. I like that it's not like photorealistic kind of graphics. They're not trying to do that. I feel like this is one that I could play with my kid, like, and kind of dig into it. I will say that this is just me, again, completely subjective. Like some of the other ones I've been mentioning, franchise modes and stuff like that would be completely lost on me. So it's something that, like, it might be something, it's one that I'd look at, and because my kid kind of likes baseball, so I might pick that up so we could play it together, but it's not something I'm excited about. But it has great reviews, like, even though it's not out yet, but like, if you look at some of like what it's talking about, like, it seems to be reviewed pretty well for people who like this kind of game.
Yeah, and I think to me it's exciting in that turf because it's like a new studio.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a new studio, don't quote me on that, but it's definitely adding to the competitiveness of that field, right? It's one more studio entering that field. And it's done well. It's done actually better than what I've often seen on the baseball. And I'm not a baseball expert, but I've seen those games left and right.
For the record, they're not new. If you look, they've been making some kind of super mega baseball since like 2015 or so.
I think it's the first year.
Which is not. I think 5 years is officially not new in the game industry.
Yeah, I guess.
So.
And what have they come up with before? Do you have that info? What games have they made before?
A whole lot of Super Mega Baseball.
Yeah, exactly. And a bunch of DLC for Super Mega Baseball 2.
They've made this game consistently since 2015. They have Super Mega Baseball 1 and 2 and all kinds of downloadable content for the 2 with different stadiums and different parks and stuff like that. Yeah, this looks like this is kind of
looks good, right?
Yeah, this is another perfect example of me not being able to shit on something because this is not my game. I hate baseball. I don't know if you know this. I used to work at a baseball stadium. I sold beer at Ranger Stadium when I was in college. Like I was a cold beer guy at Ranger Stadium. I was there the night Nolan Ryan
Appreciate your hard
pitched
work,
his
Chris.
9th no-hitter. I was in the stadium that night selling beer.
Wow.
And to the rest of the world, that's a big deal. I still think like it was a whole game where nobody hit a ball. That sounds really boring. That's how little I like baseball. Is I was there for that and didn't care. So it's going to be very difficult to get me excited about a baseball video game.
Oh,
but
wow.
That being said, this is cool. Like I look at it. I like the characters. I like the art. I like the look of it. This is polished as hell. It's got all kinds of cool looking features.
Yeah.
And to be honest, part of what I kind of like about it is it's not, it doesn't have actually, my understanding is it's not actually based on real teams.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Which is,
and
I agree.
And that's kind of nice. It's kind of nice that it doesn't have to be NASCAR or NFL or NBA or whatever. We don't have to have the credibility of some outside of games organization to tell us that it's okay to make our video game.
And you don't have to release it. And you don't have to release it every 12 months.
Yeah, exactly. Like I like the idea that we're allowed to make a fantasy world in sports. I'm sorry, Sarah, what?
Yeah, Sarah, go ahead. Actually, Sarah, just give us your full
I was just opinion. Yeah, I'll go off. It's a lot better than the official Major Baseball League games that they put out because there's not teams that are already pre-made. You get to choose and pick your players and their stats and build them together and build them up. And it is more cartoony than those games as well, which gives it a fun feel vibe. And I've played those games, and those games are difficult to play, but once you start playing them and you've learned how to play them, then they're great.
Yeah,
so
they're actually
fantastic to me.
They're actually pretty technically accurate as well. You look at NBA. This is an NBA Playground, I think, from 2K that came out. There's two of them that came out in the last couple of years, and I don't think I have the title of the games right, but this stuff sells, this stuff does well, and if technically, like, you can still, I completely agree with you, Sarah, because you can still be completely accurate technically, like in your passes, in your throws, in your kicks, whatever the sport, right, and have that cartoony feel going for yourself, and I feel like that's, it's great that this whole genre went there.
I want to talk about something for a second, like. I was thinking about this the other day in what we call fantasy, right? If I tell you I'm going to make a fantasy game, we immediately already know what fantasy is. It's going to have orcs and it's going to have elves and it's going to have, we know what fantasy is. Fantasy has become very tight as a genre. And what's interesting to me is when we say fantasy, fantasy could be anything. Fantasy could be anything that's not reality. And I was watching, I'm ashamed to say I was watching the Fast and Furious movies the other day.
Don't be.
And I'm sorry, man. I'm not proud. But I was watching like Fast and Furious, and I thought to myself, this is fantasy, right? This world, the world of Fast and Furious does not exist. There's not a parking lot anywhere in the world with a bunch of girls in mini skirts hanging out on sports cars, just waiting to drool over the guy who drives fast. This is a fantasy. This is a male fantasy, but it's a fantasy. And I got to thinking about how many other fantasies we could be creating that aren't what we know as fantasy. And I actually look at this and I say, this is kind of that. If you're somebody that's really into baseball and really into sports, if I were to make an officially sanctioned game with officially sanctioned players, I couldn't make them look goofy. I couldn't give them big heads and funny hats, and I couldn't have the explosion when the baseball hits the ball. There's all of this kind of stuff that they're doing to make it fun and interesting and fantastical that you couldn't do if you were licensing an actual sport, because somewhere along the way, some asshole lawyer would show up and say, that's not what Barry Bonds actually looks like, and somebody's got to approve everything and blah, blah, blah. Fuck all that, right? If you don't have to deal with any of that, you can actually build a fantastical baseball world, which is what they've done. And I like that. I wonder why we can't do more of that. Why can't we have more fantasy that's not fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan.
I will say that you can download a free demo of this game, as it says here on their Steam page, and you can play an unlimited number of games in that demo. So if you look at this and you're thinking that sounds pretty cool, like you can go grab that now.
Nice.
Cool.
Sarah, move on to the next one. Deep Rock
Great, thank you.
Galactic.
Okay, so we have Deep Rock Galactic Early Access, developed by Ghost Ship Games, published by Coffee Stain Publishing. Deep Rock Galactic is a 1 to 4 player co-op FPS featuring badass space dwarves, 100% destructible environments, procedural generated caves, and endless hordes of alien monsters.
All right, wait. I gotta take this one first, right? For a couple reasons.
Yeah,
right?
Go ahead.
One, I happen to know the devs.
This is you.
And I will start by saying I've met the devs of this game. They're not like friends of mine, but I've met them at a couple conventions. And the devs of this game are super nice people, right? The other thing I will say is if you look at the reviews, 28,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews, right? Whatever the hell we say here doesn't matter. It's a good game, right? There's 28,000 people that have played this in early access and love the damn thing. It doesn't matter what we say. This is a solid game. But what I really want to say about this is everything I just talked a second ago about why can't we have new original fantasy? Space mining dwarves, right? Great. Well, this is exactly the thing I was just talking about. Why can't we do more of this? Instead of just another goddamn fantasy game, they were like, let's do a space mining. Let's have it be dwarves in space. It's something new. It's something original. It's fun. I've actually played this game a number of times. They gave me a copy of it actually at PAX East like a year and a half ago or so. And it was beautiful a year ago. I'm sure it's even more beautiful now. This is everything that indie gaming ought to be. We always talk about there needs to be a sort of that middle indie gaming space where they're good, solid studios making good, solid projects. It's not AAA. It's still indie. It's still people who own their own studio, but they're making games that could honestly go out and compete with the best AAA games in terms of how much fun I'm going to have for power. That's this game, right? I cannot say enough good stuff about it. I actually know a lot about this game. Give me something I can shit on because I can't shit on.
Yeah,
this,
it's a strange week because there's no like, oh, Call of Duty's making a remake or some bullshit like that. Like it's a strange week in that sense. But from the undervalued, underestimated games, it's a good week. It's a solid week. Do you think it's gonna do well, Chris? Before I move on to, let's say, Sarah.
28,000 overwhelming positive reviews in early access. It's not gonna do well. It's already doing well, right? It's
already blown up that way.
It's not. Look, this game is not going to go out and beat Grand Theft Auto. It was never designed to do that. It was designed to be a solid indie title. And is it going to do well in that space? Absolutely, it's going to do well in that space. And I'll tell you 2 reasons why. One, it has a really good fan base. The community around this game is actually really nice and really supportive. And one of the reasons the community around this game is so good is because the devs have done an incredible job of building that community. If you go to their Discord, it's like a really happy, nice place. It's really active. These are very responsive developers. All that stuff that people say that developers ought to do in early access and
these guys are doing it.
They're doing all of that. They're firing on every cylinder. And
that's
why they've had this great buildup. So, are they going to do well? They're already doing well. I hope they do a lot better. But dude, if I had 28,000 positive reviews on Steam, I would giggle myself silly if somebody asks, are they going to do well? They're already doing well, right? They're doing just fine. And this is the sort of And
how much is the game going for on Steam? How much is if anybody?
It's $29.99.
Yeah, it's a real price game.
Fuck, they're doing well. Okay.
Yeah,
it's doing well, very well.
The only sort of thing that I'm, it's been in early access a really long time. And I wonder how long there's an entire debate to be had about whether or not this is the right or the wrong way to do early access. I would argue that it's the right way to do early access, but you have to get people to buy into it. This game's been in early access quite a while.
Well, I think sorry to stop you here, but I think that the problem with early access is that people still think of launch. early access is basically saying there is no launch. Early access is basically saying you're going to help us build this game. And when we launch is when we move on to the next one.
I hope that's not the way it is. Coming from a position of person who's launching a game that's been in early access.
I was thinking about you as I was saying this thing, but I'm
game away next week. But my worry is that people begin to think like that launch means, we're done and we're moving on. I would almost love to see a world where there was no launch and what we know as early access was actual launch. And that's the way we built games. I would love to see a world that looked more like Deep Rock Galactic. I wish it were a world where you launched your game, what they called early access, and you launched in the early access and you said, "Hey guys, this is what we're building. Anyone interested in coming and playing with us?" And then you just consistently make it better and better and better, and you do that forever. I would love to see a world, and there's good examples.
But then in that logic,
RimWorld did this, Factorio did this. There's a couple other games that have a really good. I think RimWorld is still in fucking early access. I'm not sure it ever really launched.
But Chris answered this simple question: what separates launch from early access?
Delicious 3 did good.
Say what, Sarah?
Oh, I said Cook Serve Delicious 3. They had a great Discord, and they listened to what we were saying because I did that in early access. And it was fantastic. It really ended up working. They even made some changes that I suggested, and a couple of people were like, "Oh yeah, that." And I can't even remember what they are.
Yeah, no.
When you have a group like that, it really works.
I don't think anyone at this table denies the benefits of early access from a developer standpoint. My bigger question here is what separates early access from launch?
What separates
the reason,
early access from
to
launch
me,
people...
just let me back up here a second. Back up here just 1 second, Chris. To me, what would spark the debate here, because I think it's a debate worth having. To me, what matters, if you're gonna have a launch that wants to dissociate itself from the early access era that can last from a couple weeks all the way to 10 years. We've seen it go as far as that by now. You still need to have some sort of a gap between the experience a gamer has during early access and the actual launch of the game. And that doesn't exist right now. Like, there is no gap. And that's my biggest beef with a launch, and that's why I say, like, once you've gone into early access, you've launched. You've just kind of launched with
I would agree with you if the world agreed with you, but the problem is there's still a lot of people who feel differently. There's a lot of media outlets that are like, "Nah, we don't review early access games." There's a bunch of YouTubers and streamers out there who are like, "Yeah, I don't play early access games."
True.
And so the problem
you get a
is
marketing
really
wave with the launch. You get a marketing wave with the launch.
The problem is we haven't all sort of agreed on how games are going to get made. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's okay that there's various different ways of building games. But I think, the reason, the big difference between early access and launch is the expectations of the audience, I guess.
I guess I wish.
From me as a developer, I can tell you my launch event next week, the last thing I would ever consider doing is adding a whole bunch of content next week, right? Because all that's going to do is assure that my launch is going to go poorly because a bunch of shit's going to break. Right?
So, but that's because that's because Steam and now Epic Games and another whole debate to be had about, like, how freaking Epic Games stole something that Steam should have coined by now, which is early access. You can also get early access on Epic Games now, the same branding, the same message. Interesting to me. But the fact of the matter is, Steam never made it part of its culture to say, "Hey guys, you've got early access, you've got the launch, and in between there's a gap for the developers to exploit, just a time period, right? To exploit for the developers where nobody gets to play the game, and the launch is going to happen maybe 6 months from now, and that's the law." Like, as kind of, because you can tell me that Steam or Valve as a company up till now hasn't acted as some sort of legislator in the gaming industry in some shape or form in terms of how.
You'd be amazed how much they don't get involved. One of my big surprises.
They don't get involved, but
they just sort of let the ecosystem do what it's going to do. It's much less edicts from Valve and much more, this is what players have come to expect.
Sure, but this. Yeah, but that's why we love him, right? Like, that's why, despite the fact that they have the fucking monopoly, and I agree with you, thank God for Epic Games, they've done certain things so well, and I really feel like what you're saying is it's been a company's reaction to what the community wants.
Largely, the company doesn't do much. I mean, the honest truth is, we get letters from Valve that say, here's our suggested behavior, but you do what you want to do. Largely, the audience drives what happens on Steam, which is good and bad. I mean, there's sometimes I wish that Steam would step in and say, hey, you know what, this garbage probably shouldn't be cluttering up the airwaves. Let's not, I'm one of the happiest things I ever did. I remember people bitched about when Steam did that you had to pay $100 to put a game up on Steam, and a bunch of people lost their fucking minds about that. And I was like, look, if you don't have $100 goddamn dollars, how serious about game development are you, asshole? I wish they'd put it at 1,000, right? I wish they put 1,000. Like, look, you got to put $1,000 down. You put a game on Steam. We'll give you your $1,000 back in royalties, but you got to put $1,000 in, because I liked the fact that it cleared a lot of clutter out of Steam, and I wish we could clear more clutter out of Steam and have more games like Deep Rock Galactic on Steam. I wish that ecosystem was healthier that way. But getting back to the what is launch? Launch is defined right now not by Valve, not by the developers, honestly, not even by the audience. It's sort of by the media and the influencers and what people are willing to cover and not willing to cover. There's a lot of people who won't talk about my game until I launch. But I can tell you honestly, my launch event next week is technologically just another week's worth of patch builds, right? It's just, we just put a date on the calendar and we said, okay, we're launched next week. But I'm not adding a bunch of new content or doing anything like that, because we'd get destroyed if we did that. So, it's I don't know what launch is anymore. And I think there's a whole world of debate and question about what early access and launch are. There's so many games out there that are, like you say, they've been in early access for 5 years, 8 years. At that point, is that access early anymore? What is that even? I don't even know. And Deep Rock Galactic is another one that's been in early access. Like, I don't know how long, but it's at least a year,
over 2 years.
Maybe over 2 years. It's been a while. What does it mean that they're launching? I don't know. At the point that you've had a game in early access for 2 years, maybe launch does mean, yeah, I'm going to pull a bunch of people off this game and put them on something else. Maybe that's what it does mean. I hope it's not. I hope that they're going to continue building their community. I don't know. But there is a real question to, if you're, how long are people going to be playing a game? I mean, I know people still play World of Warcraft, but how many games are there that really get people to play them for 3 years or more? Right?
I honestly feel like if your game is good, it sees no end.
Well, I mean, the end is not that you're bored with a game. The end is that there's 100 other games put out on Steam every week, and you kind of want to go play some of them.
Don't matter.
Right? I mean, I love Lord of the Rings, but I watch other movies.
Overwatch, right? No matter how you and I feel about Overwatch is a good game. Period. Right? Like,
I tell you right now, 3 years from now, most people who are playing Overwatch will have moved on to something else.
To Overwatch 2.
Maybe, or to whatever competes with Overwatch or whatever. My point is, when you've got a game in early access for 3 years, there is a real question of, okay, maybe launch does mean it's time to move on. I don't know. Maybe that's the case, because there are very few games that can survive 3 years of constant play unless they're an MMO.
Yeah, but
which, this is actually an MMO, so it's not an MMO, but it's a online game.
All right, but Chris, like, for me, here's a successful story. You want an early access successful story, and then we'll close the show. It's and Joel, you have to help me out here, because I know you know the game. I forget the title. It's a space game. It's a simulation game. It was in early access for years. It's very cartoonish. Space Engineers.
Oh yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Space Engineer. So for me, this is the perfect early access scenario, because here's a team. It's probably 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, 5 guys, maybe, right? Like, and the team grew as the early access started to sell, and it came out maybe 7-8 years ago. I want to tell you something like that. Space Engineers. I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah.
Right. And early access did very, very, very well. Continue to do well. Suddenly they released the game, and they released the game like what? Last year? 2 years ago? I forget. But by that time they had it made. By that time they had it made. Space Engineers 2 is one of the most highly anticipated games of 2020. Maybe it comes out of 2021, but we're already looking and we're already excited. And if you look at the trailer and just the entire marketing kit of Space Engineers 2, it looks like a AAA game. So this is a studio that not only came out of the shit, like of the gutter, that went through the early access experience, succeeded through it, launched the game, immediately took all the money they made and kept on spending it into the dream, right? And are now making Space Engineers 2, which looks like the dream game for anybody who's ever loved Space Engineers 1. At least that's the way I look at it. It's so like, to answer, like, I guess I hope that's kind of some good response to what you were just saying, Chris, which
I don't think there is a final answer. I think, and maybe the nice thing is that there's not. Maybe it's.
But
nice
my point being, like, early
different,
access can be such an opportunity for a young team,
but my point is,
right?
maybe there's different ways to handle early access, and different projects will use it in different ways. Take a look at one of these side-scrolling beat 'em up games, right? Are you really going to play that side-scrolling beat 'em up game for 4 years? Really? Honestly?
Yeah,
it wasn't designed for that. It wasn't made for that, right?
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, I'm not gonna tear it down because you can't play it for, you know, if you tried to make me play Golden Axe for 3 years, I'd get bored with it. And Golden Axe was fucking awesome, right? So you can have an awesome game that is designed around the idea that I'm going to put 20 hours into it, and then I'm going to say, yeah, that was $10 well spent, yay, and then you move on with your life, right? And that's fine. The world needs those games. Should that game be in early access for 2 years?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, right? Exactly. It doesn't make much sense to me.
That's my point.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, because you mentioned earlier about genres, and are there genres that are good for early access and some that aren't? And like you say, story-based games, not really, you know, not great for early access.
Racing games.
I've played through your story. I'm done with that, you know.
Like last week, we saw 505 Games come out with Drift 21 early access, and it's a racing game. And it occurred to me this week, I'm like, why are you coming out in early access? Like, how does that make sense, right? Like, why does a racing game come out in early access? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, but there is an argument to be made for maybe they wanted to check the balance on things. Maybe they wanted to see, do people like this? You know, I don't know anything about racing games, but, you know, do people like the way the physics feel? Do we want to tweak this? Do people like, you know, there is an argument for, hey, let's come in and see if you like this game. Do you like our UI? Do you like this feature? Can we change this stuff? All right, fine. If there's some people that want to play, and for that, you know, a 3 to 6 month early access, that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, and last week Joel did touch on the whole RPG/simulation side of the Drift 21 early access game. So that does make sense.
And I've been playing that because I've been reviewing it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and honestly, they need a lot of early access and they need a lot of testing. If they launched it as is, it would get slaughtered. The physics are not there. They're gonna add. I mean, I'm assuming they're gonna add like lots of tracks, lots of cars, build the physics, and why wait 6 months? I mean, I think they should have taken, honestly, with that one, taken more time with the physics and given 1 or 2 cars versus the 3, and then, you know, but why wait 6 months as you get licensing for cars and build the models, right, when you can release those as you go and really kind of get people into the game? Like, so, like, honestly, in this case, it's, especially if they don't have a lot of testers on their team, and as a professional tester, like that's what I do, you know, is like, I know how difficult that is, especially to get those. So like, to a point, like, I think that getting people's hands on it is probably a good idea.
I would say there's, and getting back to your original question of what does launch mean? I think in these cases, launch is a chance for the developer to throw their hands up and say, all right, we let you guys play this, and we think this is a pretty good version, right? When we put it out in early access, we weren't real sure about these features. We weren't real sure about this. We've let you guys play it. We've changed a bunch of stuff. Hey, we think it's good now. Want to try? Right? And so you can really have 2 kinds of players. You can have player 1 who's like, I want to get involved early. I want to have opinions. I want to talk to developers. But there's some players that don't want to do that shit. There's some players that are just like, I have very little gaming time. I want to play a game. I want the game to be finished and final and bug-free and fun and balanced the first time I set foot in it. And for them, you can say, look, we launched this. We officially stand behind it right now. in that world, like the idea of an early access and a launch makes sense to me. I wish that we had a better concept of which kind of game goes into which service and which way it's handled. Going back to, let's say, RimWorld, right? That was a game that was in early access forever, right? And they just kept adding features and kept adding stuff. And it was fun to be involved in that process, because RimWorld is a sort of game that you can come back to over and over again and see the new features and test the new features. It's a very different game than a beat 'em up or a racing game. And so I think it's actually good that it's a little bit fluid how people use early access. But I do worry that a lot of audience gets confused because they're part of this mindset and they come into a game that's part of a different mindset and they say, well, this is shit. Why is this like this? This isn't what I expect. That's the concerning bit. And I wish we had maybe more words or, I don't know. I wish there were more ways to describe how you're dealing with early access so that people knew what they were walking into when they walked into it, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
But I don't know how to do that.
And just to go back to Deep Rock Galactic, this game reminds me so much of the original Team Fortress 2, where it's the first-person shooter, and you can build shit, and you can fire away, and you can be this character or this character, and that is the perfect game. When they started adding all the extra stuff, that is when Team Fortress 2 went from being a great game to being an okay game and a kind of sometimes game. But I miss the orange box release of Team Fortress 2.
Well, it definitely looks good. We've got let you guys go. It's past 10 p.m. Past my commitment to get you guys back in bed by 10 p.m. or out to your day, Chris.
Can I say one last thing about Deep Rock Galactic? I'll tell you a little story about it. I made a game called Legends of Kalasia. It was a fantasy turn-based strategy game. And we had a player that came to our game named Dwarf Furious. And Dwarf Furious showed up, and apparently, and I'm not making this dude up, Dwarf Furious, which is a great name, right? Dwarf Furious only plays games with dwarves. He's got like some sort of weird dwarf fetish. He came to our game because our game had dwarves. And he was so excited about our game because we had dwarves. And he actually brought me to Deep Rock Galactic. He was the person that introduced me to the game because obviously, this Deep Rock Galactic is his game, right? This is dwarves in space. He couldn't get enough of this, right?
So it's Dwarf Furious on your Discord who brought you to Deep Rock Galactic. That's the story.
He brought me to Deep Rock because he only plays dwarf-based games. And this was like a year and a half ago. This was quite a while ago.
Okay.
And so the thing I liked about it was that was the first time I ever saw a player, somebody who wasn't involved in the development of the game, just a player who was actually going around to other communities and being like, dude, you need to come play this game that I'm playing. It's really good.
I see that stuff all the time, Chris.
I
see that stuff all the time. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. It's the first time I'd ever seen it. And I thought to myself, fuck, I wish my players were like that. I wish the people who played my game would go show up in the Civ Discord and say,
probably are.
Come play my
That's
game.
But that's the thing. It's like, how would you know about it? It's not like they go home.
True.
It's not like they go home and report, right? It's like, hey, I want to sell your stuff on the other person's Discord.
By the way, that's my son, Kazu.
Hey, Kazu. You have a great dad.
He can't hear you.
Well,
he brought me a strawberry shake. So,
see, that's but my point being, and love your son, but my point being, like, it's not the stuff. I bet you this type of stuff happens to your fan base. It's just.
I hope.
Yeah.
It gave me a very positive view of Deep Rock Galactic, and I did. I went to their Discord and I nosed around, and I would say this is a part of games that doesn't get talked about enough. What is your community like, right? Especially a game like this, it's got a multiplayer component and all that. If your community is good, the game can be a little bit shittier because you're like, I like being a part of this group of people. And that thing, and this is when Blizzard like fired all of its community managers. I remember thinking to myself, that's the stupidest thing you've ever done. Of all the shit Blizzard ever did, that was the stupidest move they ever made, because those people were the people who were maintaining the community, which, honest to God, at the point in the life cycle that Blizzard games are, is probably more important than any feature Blizzard could ever build or release, right? And so this game, this is what I want to say about these people. They get it. They got the idea of building a community, supporting a community, and making and policing that community and making sure it wasn't full of a bunch of cock nuggets who would come in and be dicks to your users. Like, this is important, and it doesn't get talked about enough. And I just really want to give them props for doing a great job in building that.
I think we totally agree. Sarah, you want any closing thoughts on this while I prepare the Wheel of Fortune?
The Wheel of Fortune.
I just can't wait to play Chris's game. I'm very excited to play Monkeys on Monkeys. That's the only way that would improve Deep Rock Galactic if there were monkeys on monkeys.
They need more monkeys.
More monkeys.
Am I actually going to have to talk about my game next week on this show? Is that going to be a thing? Oh, that's going to be uncomfortable and weird. But I'm going to do it. I'm man enough to do it.
Yeah, and we're not going to be biased. I'm going to invite as many people as I can just to shit all over your game, Chris.
No, I'm going to shit all over my game. Nobody shits on my game harder than me.
I'm going to get the full team here. We're going to have 12 people on the Noobcast. Go, guys. And last but not least, talk shit about that one. That's the only way we're gonna do it, Chris.
Yeah.
To
Nice.
be completely like off of the possibility of being accused of being biased,
You guys you're gonna mute me. That's what's
Yeah.
gonna happen. You're gonna bring me on the show. You're gonna bring up my game, and then I'm just gonna be muted, and you guys are just gonna shit on it for like 30 minutes. That's how it's gonna play out.
It's Wheel of Fortune time, guys. We've got I think just about a dozen games we're giving away. Some of them being really good, some of them being shitty, but a ton of them being really good. Let's focus on that. And no, to be frank, I try and like keep a budget of about $200 a week. So it's a really fair deal for the 3 people watching us. You guys are getting a good deal.
Pretty good.
Keep having fun with us. One day we'll be famous. I promise.
I have no idea why more people don't show up just for the giveaways. There's like $200 worth of games a week given away on this show.
Right?
It's just we just kind of suck at advertising, man.
Maybe
Like,
that's how we should start advertising it. Watch our show, possibly win $200 worth of games.
You know what you should do? You should retitle this show the $200 a week game giveaway show. That should be the fucking title.
I mean, not the worst idea.
I'm just saying, $200 a week. That's the name of the show, right? $200 a week giveaway show.
So the sad thing is, I think that would work.
I'm not joking, Fred. I'm serious as a fucking heartbeat. You call it the $200 a week giveaway game show, and I swear to God, we will double our users next week.
Don't matter.
I swear to God, it'll happen.
Okay, deal. Next week?
Wait,
not. No.
If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna name the show that way, you also have to make sure that you give away a copy of every game that you talk about on the show.
Wait. Let it be on the record right now that the Noobcast is no longer the Noobcast. It is the $200 a week show giveaway. Wait, what?
Done, dude.
No.
That's the best idea I've had all week, right there. $200 a week, $200 giveaway game show. That's it.
I send it to my editorial board on OP
No more
Noobs and see if we can.
Freeze, Chris. You're done.
Can we put a price tag on that?
Dude, $200 a week giveaway game show. That's
gonna
the title
be
of your show from now on.
It's gonna be a full-on American capitalistic show the way we like him.
Dude, you gotta do it.
Deal.
You gotta do it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for signing up. Thanks for participating. Thanks to the people who are watching it live, and thanks to the people who will hopefully eventually watch it on YouTube. We do get views on YouTube, if that's a reassuring thought, Chris. It's a great show. It's the Noobcast once every week, every Tuesday night, 9:30.
It's not the Noobcast. It's the $200 giveaway game show.
What?
Get it right.
Exactly.
It's I'm still not used to it. It's the $200 giveaway every once a week show.
No. You got to keep it short. $200 giveaway game show. That's the name right there.
It's the $200 giveaway game show.
If you need to put OP Noobs at the front, you can put OP Noobs. It makes you
the
feel
OP
better.
Noobs $200 giveaway game show every Tuesday night on Twitch at 8:30 p.m. US Eastern Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You'll also find us on the news starting this week. We'll see you in 2 days, just Thursday night. And we've got a ton of great news coming up. So check in 48 hours from now. Chris, Joel, Sarah, thank you guys. Had a blast. We'll see you next time, guys. Have a good night.
See ya.